Well, as you can see, I've started putting scenery on one small section of the layout. The track has been laid, and I'm just playing around with these buildings to see where I can place them. I'm a great believer in just do it. When you start a layout, just get in there and do it. You can fix everything later on. You can have all the time in the world for perfection, customizing, getting things just right at the beginning. This layout, I didn't want to spend years ballasting, so I put down the Javis matte ballast. Track laid on top of it, and a few places here and there, because my track is reconditioned old track, I have put ballast in to try it. But mainly on this video, I want to talk about a technique I learned from Wargaming, and that is not gluing down structures. I'll glue down trees, bushes, grass, and everything else, but I won't glue down structures, except large ones like the curved platform on the right. This is why I worked with the Javis ballast mat. It was that reason to be able to cover a large area in ballast, you can see here, and then plot buildings and so on, and scenic elements in between. And it sped up the process enormously, but the main reason for that was I live in a very damp climate here in the west of Ireland, and ballast with PVA method takes forever to dry. Now, returning to the subject of wargaming buildings, they're all on bases. And this way, I can decide where I want to put them. I might like them in one position for a while, and then later on, I may hate them there and want to move them somewhere else. So I tend to build innocuous structures that have a generic look, because model trains and railways and rail system buildings all over the world, because they're industrial in nature, tend to look the same, like this small hut. I think it was an old model power building. And by putting them on these bases, you can start populating your layout without any kind of great commitment, and you can move them around. This prevents you from making a mistake, having to rip them up, or if you get a new building you want to replace it with, having to tear it up and put in the new building. You just simply pick it up. Now, because they're scenic around the edge with things like grass tuft, scatter material, and foliage, it helps them to sit better on the grass mat. And eventually, a lot of the grey areas you see on the grass mat will be covered over with light grass. This particular piece here is a Germanic HO structure. I like that building because it could fit anywhere in the world, and I've had that for about 20 years. In order to make it look less Central European, I painted these tiles on the roof more of a slate color. I used Games Workshop, and you can see it will go with anything. There's an SNCF diesel there, there's British Freightliner container trains, and there was an East German box cab. It will go with anything. So that could be easily in the Pacific, in the northwest of the United States, and somewhere in New Jersey or anywhere, Pennsylvania, which is where I like to model 1970s trains, Lehigh Valley and so on from there. Or it could be anywhere in Europe as well. This one is very European, but you could probably get away with it in some parts of America. It's an old wargaming resin kit. Again, I put them on bases. The bases help to finish them off, to complete them as little dioramas. You build them on your desk, on your workbench, and then you take them to the layout. And there's no commitment. You leave them there for a while. So you instantly get scenery. In fact, if you're planning a layout in advance, they're great during the winter months. You can actually make these away from your layout room, or if it's in your attic, or in your loft, or in your garage. And you can make these in your warm workbench area, or your desk, and enjoy them. It's a very pleasurable hobby in and of itself. And remarkably inexpensive. You can repaint them. This is an example here. This is an old JUF French signal tower, signal box. And by putting, again, the excellent Bouche card textured materials on it, it kind of becomes international as well. You could see that just about anywhere. You can even do things like a rock. Here, the rock is just a regular rock for scenery. Again, I put the grass tufts around the edge and so on, so it sits into the flat surface. This area here is a corner. It's always fun to do corners. But then again, I might go down the road, I might say to myself, I don't like that water tower there and that red building, and I might want to remove it. This, for instance, was a Hornby house, 00 scale. I just covered it again in, I think that was Faller or Knock brick papers, and look how good it looks there in the corner. And the little side hut, the lean-to, is from some old HO kit. And for now, I'm happy with that. I'm comfortable with that. This is the last one I worked on this today. It's a small halt, it could be a tram or a trolley station or a small commuter station. I've seen little small stations like this in Germany. And this, I think, was a model power platform. I put the bush, weathered plank, wooden papers on top. The seat is an old Hornby seat, I think, and then the background, the fence is a triangle Hornby platform fence, which I painted with the green contrast colors from Games Workshop. Great range of paints. I paint nearly all my buildings now in Games Workshop contrast paints. A few figures, again, on a base, and scenic all around with grass and grass tufts to make it sit into the scenery. And don't forget, I like to use rounded edges on when I can. The rounded edge just makes it seem more natural or something rather than a straight edge. Typical engineering workshop from a rail company. A little hut. This is a Hornby switch motor cover. I painted and weathered in Games Workshop technical paints. The excellent corrosion paint is fantastic. It actually has a texture of rust. Another little hut here. You can put figures on them. You can put telephone poles like I do. And again, building these little gems by themselves is a hobby in of itself and can be tremendously enjoyable. So to anyone who's building a layout, you can spend all the time. Look, okay, there's people who build very highly prototypical layouts. They really want to get it right. After all my years in modeling, I want somewhere to run my collection of trains. That's attractive, that's interesting, that's scenic, that's photogenic, that will not conflict architecturally or environmentally or culturally with the trains that I'm running too much. That you could probably say, okay, there's the French diesel in the foreground, this could be somewhere in France, British containers in the background, this could be somewhere in England, and so on. That's the old Atlas turntable there, the best cheap turntable on the market. Again, cardboard base or plastic card base, preferably plastic card, it tends not to warp. Or very good quality cardstock. And they sit there and they're waiting for more buildings to come. The rest of the scenery. The one thing I also do stick down, as you can see, there's the dry stone walling, fences and things like that. You do have to stick them down. That's the excellent Hornby range of dry stone wall that I love, and that's a curved Hornby platform with the bush planking on the top. An old, I don't know what that an old card kit that I made, an old British 00 scale card kit which I put up there. And again, yeah, it's a little British country station, but it wouldn't look out of place on the Lehigh Valley or somewhere like that. A German transformer tower, I think this is, or similar. And I just, again, that's very old. I've had that model for decades. Just another thing too, I like to reuse models. I'd like to save my stuff and continue keeping them. Also, if I ever did want to pass these on, give them to people or sell them on, they can be sold as little dioramas and so on. And again, it's just such a beautiful little hobby in itself. It's so enjoyable. That's actually a Japanese N scale factory that I've turned into a HO set of sheds. You wouldn't know. And you can see where I put the telegraph poles there. I glued them on them. And I love clusters of buildings on layouts. I love watching trains move in and out of heavily clustered scenes, but not necessarily heavy urban scenes. I love 1950 style rail systems that have lots of huts, sheds, where many things were fabricated on site, where trains were repaired, wagons, boxcars were repaired, where small little foundries, workshops, everything that was needed, often contained. Even in rural areas, you would find these warrens of tracks moving through small buildings. There's something very attractive about a train, especially from eye level, moving through a warren of buildings, moving through a layout. It can be very, very appealing in how it looks. And again, if I don't like what I have, if I say, okay, this area here, maybe I want to make something more agricultural looking or more urban looking, less provincial looking, I could just take everything up, including that large Hornby platform, and start all over again.